Exit algorithms. Scale smarter. Sell stronger.
Welcome to Exit Algorithms, the podcast where we decode what it really takes to unlock growth, streamline operations, and prepare your business for a high-value exit. I'm your host, Pete Vera, and today I'm excited to bring on Jeff Villwock. Known as the Acquisition Professor, Jeff has 45 years of M&A and operating experience, has closed over $2.6 billion in transactions, served as CEO of a leading textbook distributor, and now coaches entrepreneurs on how to buy profitable businesses and exit at maximum value. Jeff, so excited to have you here. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Pete. Great to see you again.
Yeah, you too. Can you start off by sharing your business journey, career?
The first career was about 25 years as an investment analyst, and I ended up as one of the top 5 healthcare analysts in the United States, according to the Wall Street Journal, and was running the healthcare research group for Robinson Humphrey, which in Atlanta, which is part of Solomon Smith Barney and Citigroup. So I left that in about 2000 to start an investment bank to do deals, primarily in healthcare. And so, that launched basically a 20-year effort, to do deals. And so, I've represented tons of people on the sell side, a few companies on the buy side, during that stretch of time. And in 2019, I got a call from a former investment banking client. And he said, "Hey, I've got this business. I think I want to buy it. And I have absolutely no idea how to do that. Can you help me?" I said, "Sure. I mean, that's what I do." So, he sent me the material. I got back with him and said, "Hey, A, I know exactly how to get your deal done. B, you've got a new business partner. And C, why don't you let me run it as CEO?" And this was a $35 million textbook distribution company with health science textbooks. So we sold virtually every medical school, nursing school, major college and university, all the major health care providers like, Mayo Clinic and HCA and all those guys, because they've got libraries. And we sold the textbooks. And so I ran that as CEO for 4.5 years. We exited in late 2024. And I'm now in the process of starting my 4th career. And that is to, find businesses to buy primarily in healthcare services. Oh yeah, we closed this in June of 2020. Just think about what was going on in June of 2020, and realize all of our customers, colleges, universities, they were all shut down. There was not a single college or university open in June of 2020. And whether that was foresight or stupidity, I don't know. But we closed the deal in June of 2020. And frankly, Pete, we had to get it financed 3 different times.
Oh, man, yeah.
Because of the disruption, in the capital markets. Our first lender dropped out 7 days before closing. The second lender dropped out about 5 days after we were supposed to close. And so I needed to find a lender that didn't care about COVID. And so I found a family office that just wanted their pound of flesh. And, and we got the deal done with them.
Wow. Yeah, what a tumultuous journey.
Oh, that was unbelievable. Can you imagine, spending 6 months on an acquisition, being within a few days of closing? All the documents are done. And the second time, I had already signed all the documents as the buyer. Okay, the seller had signed all. Well, this is for financing. So, but we had signed all the documents with this finance company, and they woke up one morning and said they couldn't do the deal. So, not fun. Don't recommend it.
Did COVID affect the valuation of the company at all?
No, it really didn't. the university market snapped back very quickly. We didn't lose a beat. I mean, the fall semester, started a little late. Normally it starts in August. That year it started more in September, mid to late September. But, you know, the sales volume was the same. I mean, the kids that are, want to be doctors are highly motivated.
Yeah.
All right. They're going to go to school regardless. Same thing with nurses. I mean, so you didn't have kids dropping out of, a medical school. As soon as the medical school, decided they could be open, everybody was back.
It was pretty resilient business model.
Yep.
And when
Yeah.
you sold the business, how was that process? Or you exited? Was there any kind of lessons learned from that experience?
Yeah.
Go,
I mean,
go.
coming off of Rittenhouse, I was saying, okay, so what do I want to do when I grow up? And, realized I just had my 72nd birthday, but, what do I want to do when I grow up? And, and healthcare services just kept on calling my name. So, I took a couple of months to really review what's going on in healthcare these days because I was, you know, hadn't been in the research game since 2000 and talked to a bunch of people and figured out, what functional medicine, also sometimes called integrative or regenerative medicine, is really the future growth vehicle for healthcare services. And so, I've been looking for companies. I've, signed 7 LOIs last year. 5 of them blew up in due diligence. One of them, the seller decided not to sell. And the last one, they lost their medical director and one of their key marketing people as we were going towards the closing table. So 0 for 7. That was not fun. We made an offer yesterday on a very nice business. And, I've teamed up with a physician as, basically a 2-man team. And, and it looks like we're going to get that one. So, we'll see. Oh, I'm doing it myself. That's right. And, Carl Allen's, Deal Maker Wealth Society, I'm one of his coaches. And so I've got 2 different teams that I'm coaching. And so I probably see 30 to 40 deals a month
Yeah.
between what I'm originating myself and what other people in that program are bringing to me to, coach and talk through what do I do with this business? How do I get this financed? Can I get it financed?
Yeah.
So, and that's a lot of fun. I enjoy that.
I imagine that combined with your wealth of experience from your earlier careers
Yeah,
gives
no
you.
question. I mean, that's very helpful. I mean, you know, for some things to look out for.
Speaking of red flags, what are maybe some things to watch out for? Say an existing business owner is trying to grow through acquisition.
Mhm.
What makes a good target versus a bad one?
Yeah, great question. So, if you're a business owner and and you've got a business of enough size, and it doesn't have to be huge, but hopefully you're doing at least $1 million in operating earnings or EBITDA. And you want to go out and buy something to scale that business. It's a great strategy. It's a fantastic strategy for a couple of reasons. One is, if you're growing organically at 10% a year, I mean, to double your business is going to take over 7 years. If you compound at 10%, it'll take 7 years. All right. If you buy another business doing the same amount of earnings that you're doing, you double it overnight. And then you can grow at 10% a year. So, and the other beauty of acquiring another business as part of your growth, if you're at $1 million in EBITDA, for instance, your multiple is probably going to be about 3.5. If you're at $5 million in EBITDA, your multiple may be 8. It may be 10 times earnings. So not only do you grow the actual cash flow, but you're also exponentially growing the value, your value, the equity value of the business.
Mm. Yeah.
So, but what do you have to watch out for? Make sure there's some complements between the two businesses. There's a lot of people doing home services right now. So they'll get into HVAC. And then they can buy an electrical contractor. Why does that make sense? Well, because the same sorry, I'm a healthcare guy. The same customer base, uses both. How about roofing? Still in the house. So you don't necessarily, if you're in the HVAC business, need to buy another HVAC company. If you can do that and extend your geography, terrific. But if not, take your current geography and expand the number of services that you can provide to the same customer that you have today. It's a great strategy. The thing you have to watch out for is what I call integration risk. Okay, when you're buying any company, whether it's your first one or your 10th, when you walk into the company you just bought, realize that everybody that works for that company assumes they're going to get fired.
Wow.
New owner coming in. I've known Joe for 20 years. Anxiety level goes through the roof. And that happened at Rittenhouse. It'll happen anywhere. And so the first thing that a buyer needs to do is confront that head on. Not making any changes, at least for the next 90 days. I would always recommend that. You spend that 90 days getting to know your people, building a relationship with them, building trust with them, and worry about growing the business and all the efficiencies that you want to get. Worry about that on day 91. And that'll serve you very, very well. But when you're looking at a deal, whether it's your first one or your 10th one, I mean, the most deals fail to be acquired because the numbers aren't the numbers. What do I mean by that? They give you a financial statement. Okay, and there's going to be all these add backs to get their earnings to be as high as possible. Yeah. Right? Some of those add backs may be completely legitimate. I've seen one guy in a home service construction business 2 years in a row had $350,000 to $400,000 in add backs because he was doing a addition onto his house.
Yeah,
had nothing to do with the business. Okay, so why is that a bad thing? I mean, obviously that's not going to happen after you buy it, but why is that a bad thing? Well, it's a little thing called tax fraud. It's not a legitimate business expense. He's taking it on the tax return. You buy the stock of that company, and the IRS comes in a year later to do an audit. You're cooked. Right? So you need to understand that, okay, if the guy was doing that, he needs to keep the company. You take all of his assets and structure it as an asset purchase rather than a stock purchase. And at least that gets you one step away from the fraud that he was doing. I lost a deal. I remember I told you that one deal fell away. The seller decided not to sell.
Yeah.
He had taken a multi-million-dollar EIDL loan during COVID. 30-year, 3%. And did he use that in the business? Absolutely not. They put several $100,000 in their pocket. They took the rest of it and invested in annuities. So at least a 7-year hold period. When he finally figured out that he couldn't play games with the SBA and move that somewhere, or just sell me the assets and he would keep the company and continue to make his little payments. When he figured out he had to repay that loan at closing, he said, no, I'm not doing that. So, and he had two business partners, including his wife, who were about to retire. Sorry, guys, you now can't retire. Anyway,
Yeah.
stuff happens. So, due diligence, very, very important.
Yeah. Yeah.
Make sure
Red
you know
flags.
what you're buying. Make sure you can integrate what you're buying. Make sure, that the systems that you have in your current business can talk to the systems in your existing business. Hire somebody as an advisor, that does integration management. They're experts at figuring out systems and processes to make sure that the business can continue to run well and that you can continue to manage it. I mean, the business I made an offer on yesterday is in the state of Texas.
Hmm.
I'm not moving to Texas. My partner's in Utah. He's not moving to Texas. Well, how in the world are you going to manage a business in Texas? Well, first, in the first 90 days, both of us are going to be down there a lot. And we're going to put systems in place. So when I wake up in the morning, whether it's on my iPhone or my laptop, I'm going to be able to see exactly what happened in that business yesterday, exactly, what each employee did in that business yesterday. And on a weekly basis, we'll get a different set of KPIs. On a monthly basis, we'll get a different set of KPIs. And so if something is going haywire, we want to know about that now, not when somebody does a financial statement 3 weeks after the close of the month.
Right.
You're on May 2nd. You're not going to know what happened until late June in most businesses. So we put in the systems to make sure that we know what happened, on May 2nd, on May 3rd.
Yeah. Smart. Yeah. No, great advice. Appreciate that. That was really good answer. Um, yeah. So let's kind of switch tracks and go. Say the business they bought a bunch of businesses. They grew their EBITDA from 1 million to 10 million EBITDA, and now they're gearing up to sell to PE, expecting a much
Perfect.
higher multiple. EBITDA arbitrage no longer 3-4x. Now they're shooting for 10x. What are some
Right.
things that business should do to properly prep for a successful exit?
Great question. So if a business is properly structured for that transaction, you can get the 8 or 10x. If private equity comes in and they realize that it's not structured that way, maybe you get 6x.
Mm,
I mean, so we're talking about a huge difference in valuation of being properly ready versus not properly ready. Okay. And your broker or your investment banker at 10 million, you should have a high quality investment banker, uh, not a broker to do your deal. Um, they should start prepping you way ahead of the time that you want to get this to market. So if you're thinking about selling and you're 2 years away, that's perfect. That's when you should start selling, getting ready for sale. Okay. So, then fast forward. Okay. We're in, almost in May of 2026. Let's say I wanted to sell in May of 2028. All right, what do I need to do in the balance of this year and all of next year to get ready for an exit in 28? Well, at first, you're going to want to make sure that your 2026 and 2027 numbers are clean as they can be,
mm,
pristine numbers. The biggest thing you want to do is to reduce the risk to the buyer. All right, if you're looking at a business and it's very risky, you're going to set a value here. If you are looking at the same business and it runs like a Swiss watch, guess what? You're happy to pay up here. because the difference between these two is the risk of a buyer having to take the business that's not run very well and put in all the systems in place. So, and generally, I mean, this is not a 2-month process. It's not a 6-month process. I mean, it's really a 2-year process. And to the extent that, you don't have 2 years, all of a sudden you get a medical diagnosis and you need out in 6 months. And you do what you can do. But the same principle applies. You want to reduce the risk to the buyer. You want your systems to be world class. You want your accounting to be world class. You don't want somebody coming in here and looking at your accounting and saying, "Oh my gosh, you told me that you had operating earnings of $10 million. No, you really had operating earnings of $7 million." So, and if you're on the buy side looking at these deals, especially tiny deals, I was coaching a guy, I don't know, a couple years ago now, brought me this lawn service company. On paper, looked fantastic. Fantastic. He was earning $400,000 or $500,000 a year. Nice business. All right. And so, I asked for the bank statements. And I knew what the guy was taking out. He was taking out $150,000 a year, but he was earning $450,000 a year. And so I asked for 3 years for the bank statements. So I took the bank balance at the beginning of the period, the bank balance at the end of the period. And I just asked a couple of questions. How many distributions did you take, or how much in distributions did you take over the last 3 years? Answer: none. Oh. How much do you think your capital spending was over the last 3 years, just for maintenance of all your equipment? He said, "Oh, I don't know, $50,000 a year." I said, "Okay, so in 3 years you at $450,000. Now you're earning $150, so you get $300,000 extra. 3 years of $300,000 is $900,000. Minus $150,000 for your capex. That's $750,000. Question: where's the cash? You hadn't taken any out. His bank balance, by the way, at the end of the 3-year period was actually lower than it was at the beginning of the 3-year period. There should be $750,000 in the bank. Wasn't there. That was a real quick process.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, that's the kind of, I didn't need to hire an accountant. We never got to the point of hiring accountants or lawyers on that deal. The guy had no freaking idea what he was earning. His wife was doing the books. She was not a bookkeeper, obviously. So, those are the types of things. Most deals that fall apart in diligence will fall apart because the numbers are not the numbers. For a seller getting ready, for God's sakes, get a CPA. I mean, somebody who's, if your best friend is, your part-time controller, that's nice, but not when you're getting ready for sale. Hire, a real controller or a real CFO. You can do that on a part-time basis. They're fractional services. I've hired fractional CFOs before. And they're not cheap, but it's a whole lot cheaper than taking 6x for your business rather than 10x for your business.
Yeah.
Make the investment and get your books situated. So by the time the buyer is looking, you've got 3 years worth of really good financials. And if you don't, at least have 2 years that are pristine. And explain that in year 3, my brother-in-law was the controller. We changed that out because we knew we needed a higher quality. And now we've got, this accounting firm doing this for us, and they've done a fantastic job.
Right. If they're
Exactly. So, I mean, what's the last sprint of growth, for instance, that you can get out of a company? I represented a company at one point. I'd met this CEO years earlier. He called me one day and said, Jeff, I've got a private equity group pounding on my door. They want to buy the business. I think I want to sell it. Can you represent me? I said, sure. So we went through the process with the private equity group, and we were getting towards the closing, not at the closing, towards the closing. And I said, Rick, you don't want to sell this business. To which he looked at me like, what, are you crazy? You get paid when I sell this business. Yeah, I understand. You don't want to sell this business. And here's why. You're going to work for this guy, because that was part of the deal. You're going to work for this guy, and I guarantee you, in less than 6 months, you're going to be pulling out your hair, screaming and yelling, and you're going to be miserable. And I said, look, I've got an alternative for you. I've done all your financial models. So I didn't leave that up to the company. I've always done my own financial models when representing a seller. And I now know that you got enough free cash flow. And this happened to be in an air ambulance business where they flew patients literally around the world in Lear jets. And I said, you can buy a new or used Lear for $750,000. All right, you can put down $150,000, $200,000 in cash, and we'll get the rest financed. You can add a new airplane every 3 months. A new airplane is $2.5 million in revenue. It's $500,000 in incremental EBITDA. I think I can help you double this business in the next 2 years, and then sell it. And he thought I was smoking crack. Absolutely impossible. I'm a one-arm paper hanger. I can't do any more than I'm already doing. I said, I don't want you to do any more than you're already doing. The limitation on your business is not you. The limitation on your business is how many planes you have. There's plenty of demand. You just need new planes. So I finally convinced him. We took that business from $10 million in revenue to $23 million in revenue in 23 months.
Wow.
And then we sold it to private equity, different private equity guy. And he walked away, I was paid, an M&A fee. I was paid a percentage of the upside and valuation that we created. But after all those fees, after tax, if you looked at what he would have done 2 years earlier to what he did when we sold it, he was just under 10 times more in his pocket after tax.
Wow.
So what was the difference? We got this thing ready for sale. There's something that we could do to goose the growth engine in that last year to make this a much more exciting business, a higher growth business. All right. Now it's the buyer's responsibility to then take that and continue going down that path. But we showed him, and he executed on a growth path that was fantastic.
Yeah.
So if you're selling a business, get ready. Figure out what you can do to, there's a old adage or saying in the investment banking world, you want to put lipstick on a pig. What can be done to make your business look more attractive to a buyer? Do that.
You don't want to lay off the gas when you're gearing up to sell. In fact, if you can show growth, then you're going to potentially 10x the value.
Yeah, and you just said something which is really important. So many owners, when they decide they want to sell, they've got one foot out the door already. They're talking to me as, I want to buy their business, and I said, great. In fact, I had one last year. You know, show me your Q1 numbers versus Q1 a year ago. Oh, you're down 30%? Really? They
Mm-hmm.
were. I'm not touching that. I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. So, you know, if you're selling, it's a race to the end, like a marathoner. I mean, they're going to go at a certain pace, but once they see the finish line, they're going to kick it into high gear if they've got that gear left,
Yeah.
and get finish strong. Same thing with selling a business. Make sure you finish strong.
Yeah. No, great psychology there too. I think that's really valuable and not common, unfortunately, especially in the small business world with
Particularly in the small
sellers.
business world. Yep,
Yeah, and
exactly
then
right.
on that 2 year timeline too, they can start to reduce the customer concentration if that's an issue, or the owner
Precisely.
dependence.
Figure out what the buyer's not going to like and fix it.
Yeah.
You know, customer concentration is a big one. If you're doing business with only Target and Walmart, or if you're doing business only with Amazon and 5% of your business is eBay, that's a huge risk to a potential buyer. So what can you do? I mean, can you create your own website and put in a Shopify site and start moving your customer base to there from Amazon? And sometimes some businesses, I mean, you can't do that. But just realize that, to the extent that you can identify the risks, your job is to reduce risk for a buyer. That's it.
Yeah. Oh, love it, Jeff. Well, thank you. I know we're up on time here. We could probably keep talking forever, but I really appreciate all your insights today. Fascinating conversation. Where can listeners, if they like this episode as much as I have, where can they learn more and find out about your work?
Well, my name's right there, right? And, my website, I was very creative. It's Jeff at, that's my email address, rather, Jeff at jeffvillwock.com.
Great.
So that's it. Send me an email. And I've got, and jeffvillwock.com is a website, so you can go to the website as well.
Thank you so much for coming on today, Jeff. It was great talking to you.
You bet, these. It's been a pleasure.
Exit algorithms. Scale smarter. Sell stronger.